Welcome to Chris and Jen in the Morning.
Where it's always morning somewhere.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Jen. We are super excited to have you here today.
We are, and we are back in our normal seating arrangements.
We are. We miss you, Chris, and we wish you would just come back.
I know, if it were only so simple.
If it were, but here we are on our cross-country, long-distance podcast friendship.
That's right.
Today, we are going to talk about how sometimes even optimists struggle to be optimistic.
That's right, which I think is a totally relevant topic for this day and age.
Where we are these days. Yeah, there's kind of like, if you listen to the news, it just feels like a big bummer these days. So, super excited to dig into that. But before we start, part of our routine of chasing joy includes gratitude. So why don't we start with our gratitude moment? And Chris, do you want to kick us off?
I would love to kick us off. So when I tell people why I moved from Texas to the East Coast, I always talk about I enjoy the seasons. Like when I lived in Texas, it's just like it's hot and then like cold for a little bit of time and then hot again. And so having now lived here, when seasons start to change, it just like brings out a new energy, really excites me. And it has been one of those weeks where it started off a little bit warm and then gradually through the week, it's like fall has arrived. And I will say this weekend, it's been a little gloomy with rainy weather, but like our max temperatures are being in the 60s.
Oh, that sounds delicious. Here, it's been in the 90s. So.
Exactly. So I will say, talking to family back home and you guys and hearing this, it's still really hot there. I'm like, oh, we're moving into the next season and I'm all for it. Now,
yep, I'll be right on that plane. I mean, in all fairness, you did say I was welcome and I just haven't gotten on the plane yet.
Correct. The planes go two ways.
Yeah.
I know that because I've taken them both ways.
Both ways?
Yeah. To and from.
Okay, got it.
Okay, so that's my gratitude moment. What about yours?
Well, I have so many things to be grateful for, including how much amazing time I got to spend with you in person and try recording a podcast in your lap last week, practically. But one of the things we did together while you were here brought me a ton of joy. And so I just want to take a moment of gratitude for that. We went to go eat at the original Rainbow Cone. There's a location here in Hearst. I think they're from somewhere up north. Do you remember where?
Chicago.
Oh, they're from Chicago? If you haven't heard of the original Rainbow Cone, it is a fantastic little ice cream shop. The building, like, you can't miss it. It's this Pepto-Bismol pink, bubblegum pink, like, just delicious little spot of joy, especially where the one here in Hearst is located, because it's like all these sort of, brown buildings that you got here in Texas, concrete jungle, and then just this bright pink waffle cone ice cream sundae building. And we actually did have the original Rainbow Cone, which is it's like a layered ice cream cone.
Correct.
So think like not scoops, but like layers. And I thought, I am not going to like this because it had some different flavors mixed in.
Yeah, flavors that I don't think we would naturally be like pulled towards.
No, I actually was like, I don't think I'm going to like this, but that's okay. I'll try it. Steve, I think his name was Steve, the owner, delightful guy and very convincing in a non-salesy way that this was the original cone that had been around for many, many, many years. And so we had it, and it was like probably one of the best ice cream cones I've ever had.
It was so good. The flavors, the creaminess, like just everything about it was so freaking good.
And fun, full of joy. So talking about, looking for where you can draw your happiness and your joy and that energy to maintain optimism from. It was just like to be there with you and with Ace, the three of us getting to enjoy it together in this building that was just built for happiness. There was just a ton of fun. Plus, Steve did tell me that it can count as a meal replacement, and I am always looking to get Ace to buy into having ice cream for dinner. So I feel like 1 point in my favor there.
Steve helped you with your argument.
He
So,
really did. He really did. He sounded a lot like my mom in that, but I'm just super grateful for people who fill our world with little moments of joy like that
yeah,
in, a ton of different ways. And
it's a
um
destination. Like, it's not just
it
like
really
your
is.
regular ice cream shop. Like, the just as like much work they took in like the outward appearance, like
Oh,
driving by it, the inward was like on a whole
the
other
inside is
level.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to sit in there and like stay. It was amazing. And it's in Hearst. It's on East. It's like east of Precinct Line off of 26, which is also called Grapevine Highway. So you can go see Steve at the original Rainbow Cone. And on Tuesdays, they have a special where the original Rainbow Cone is at a discount. So next Tuesday, maybe get your little beginning of the week pick me up with a rainbow cone for dinner.
Yeah. For dinner. Do it.
Steve said it was fine.
That's right. So go see Steve, tell him that Chris and Jen in the morning sent you. And then whenever you take photos and post them, because they have several like photo
Oh,
moments in the
you've got to take
building,
a photo. Yeah.
be sure to tag us because we want to see you.
Yeah, we do want to see you. We want to see your photos of like we want to maybe we'll go recreate some of your poses. So, we'll see. We'll see.
We'll see.
So, speaking of things that bring us joy, let's talk about optimists and how even optimists struggle to stay positive sometimes. And where I'd love to start this conversation, Chris, is with defining optimism. And then I think there are three main categories of kind of how you would define where you fall on this optimism scale. So, either optimism or an optimist, a pessimist, or a realist. And I do want to start by saying I really believe that there is not one good or bad or a better sort of mental position to start from. I think we're all naturally oriented towards one of these three categories and that we need all three of them to really balance each other out and bring a balanced perspective. We also probably kind of switch in and out of them at times, but everybody is kind of naturally oriented towards one of the three categories. So,
Yeah. And this is the same thing that like people, you hear people all the time talk about, like, oh, that's an optimistic perspective or you're a glass half full type person. Like, it's the same thing. It's the mindset that people are like living in. And so you do hear people talk about this like out in the wild.
yeah, but I do think the words carry some connotation that's
Yes.
a little bit unfair. So I love the definitions that you brought forward. How do we define optimist, Chris?
Yeah, so as I was looking for some things, I tried to like find like just a place we could kind of anchor this stuff in, right? So that we know we're all starting from the same point. So verywellmind.com had this great article where I felt like they did a great job outlining what these definitions were. So an optimist is a mental attitude characterized by hope and confidence in a positive future. It's expecting favorable outcomes during challenges. So it's like being able to see the possible good that could come out or through something.
Yeah, and what I appreciate about this definition versus what people can sometimes think optimism is it's not like you have on your blinders or your head is in the sand or you don't understand that challenges are there.
Right.
It's that you are naturally oriented towards seeing that silver lining or seeing the possible positive outcomes that could happen, and focusing on those and like really having the hope or the belief that they are a potential outcome.
Yeah.
So optimism or being an optimist does not mean that you are blind to or ignoring the positive or the negative, sorry, but it just means that you have this strong like belief that the positive is absolutely possible and
Right.
that's sort of a driving force.
Well, and I think a lot of people also use people's demeanor to
Mm.
define these as well. And I don't know if necessarily I agree with that perspective either. Because just because someone is like cheery and sunny and happy and all that stuff, like that doesn't mean that that person can see the positive or, is
Yeah, but I would
excited for
generally
it.
say that if you are constantly oriented towards just seeing the positive, that lends itself to having a bit of a cheerier nature versus if you are a pessimist. And a pessimist is the tendency to anticipate the worst possible outcomes and focus on the negative aspects of a situation. It's really hard to walk around being a cheery, bubblegum sort of personality all the time if like you are naturally oriented towards seeing the possible worst outcomes that could happen. But it's important, right? Because if you have somebody who is I see this in my relationship with my husband and our producer, Ace, all the time, where I tend to be more optimist oriented and he tends to be more pessimist oriented. And it really works well for us to pull each other back towards the center
Yeah.
because I tend to like hop right into things and get started seeing all of the potential positives and really like believing in those.
Yeah.
And then when obstacles come, it's not that I didn't think there were obstacles or didn't potentially see them, but oftentimes, I'll have to finish whatever I was doing through determination or sheer grit. Because they didn't really plan for all of those potential worst outcomes.
Yeah.
Whereas Ace can see and plan for those possible worst outcomes, but then that may make it a little bit harder to kind of like jump right in. And so when we're pulling each other both towards center, he's keeping me from just hopping off the ledge without the parachute intact. And I'm still pulling him forward towards the hay, like, look at this possibility of what we could come. It might be worth it to jump.
Right. And then I do think like that kind of leads us into this third dimension of like realist, because I do, interestingly enough, like in the Very Well Mind articles, if the article is focused on optimism in like your approach to life. And
Yeah.
so it didn't really layer in the realist perspective. And I think that's because they were trying to make a point, right? Like really show the
Yeah.
dichotomy of the optimists and the pessimists. So I found another article from the Kentucky Counseling Center that defines realist as being a person who is able to accept a situation really as it is. It's based on the facts, it's based on the objective evidence, and then really planning and putting things in place accordingly.
Yeah.
So it's like that. I kind of think of it as like a balance of a little bit of both, but then
But you
also,
may you may not be going to the like if you're a realist, you may be so centered that you're not seeing
right,
the kind of big ups or the big downs. And
correct.
so having some people in your life that can help you kind of see the potential big win upside
Yeah,
or the potential big downside is helpful too.
yeah. And there was a article that I found on the National Institute of Health website that kind of talks about these mindsets and kind of where in your mind that they live and correspond to. And
The neuroscience of it all, right?
yes. And so for like people who are processing and like living in that left hemisphere type space.
That would be your logic oriented hemisphere of your brain.
Correct. They say this is like the space where people who have high self-esteem, they usually see those parts of the brain activated in the left hemisphere. So they tend to also attribute that optimistic belief, kind of that bright future. All of those things are kind of associated with the left hemisphere of the brain.
Yeah, the problem solving, logic oriented, and then and by the way, we use both sides of our brain,
Correct.
so you aren't just
One or the
logic
other.
or just abstract. It's just it's like right-handed and left-handed, which is your natural tendency. Maybe a little
Correct.
bit better than that because since I am right-handed, I don't know how to eat with my left hand or write with it or because I haven't been practicing that. But on the right brain side, that's where your tendency is more oriented towards using that creative abstract portion of your brain, and that is more associated with the pessimistic oriented individual. And
Correct.
I think it's really interesting because in my study of two people in this house, myself and my husband, that really holds true. Like, I envy about him his abstract thinking, that ability to understand things that are like ambiguous and just sort of get it and put all the puzzle
Yeah.
pieces together. Like, I always think he is really good at that game. What is it, like Missing Connection or something, where there are things that are related, but it's not obvious how they're related, and he can just pull them together. And for me, it just has to be logical for it to sort of make sense.
Yeah.
Even my creativity is sort of logical.
I do think the thing that is important about all of this is like the parts of the brain that are activated can also be different
Yeah.
based on how comfortable you are with something or how much you know about a topic. Like, because your brain can better like process that information as it's happening. And so
Yeah.
I I don't, you said it, I just want to echo it. Like, you're not like always living in one space, and one is not better than the other. It's they're both needed so that you can, you know, be safe but also be productive. Like, it's
Yeah.
the whole package.
Absolutely. So I thought that was really interesting that in my very scientific study of two people, it really seems to hold true. So we'd love to hear from you. If you drop a comment in and let us know, like, are you right-brained or left-brained? Do you tend to be more positively or optimistically oriented or pessimistically oriented, or are you truly that, like, and be honest, guys, like, because I know a lot of people have negative connotations about both the positive and the negative, both the
Yeah.
optimist and the pessimist. And we all want to say we're balanced all the time. But like, when I'm being honest, I'm definitely not balanced. So I would jump off that cliff without the parachute buckled.
But I think that really leads into like this great next part of the conversation around like how we actually live in this in every day, because it can be
Yeah.
complicated to navigate, especially if you have like a lot of big personalities or a lot of like people engaging that are maybe not so familiar with one another, and maybe you're stepping on people's toes. I don't know.
Well, yeah. And the reason that we started talking about this topic was I actually, being a pretty optimistic person, I had a day just before you came here last week. So it was a couple weeks ago. I had a day where I just, as optimistic as I am, like, I just couldn't find the silver lining in anything. And I just felt sort of like I had been broken. Thing was just hitting. There was a lot of news happening that was pretty negative. I was feeling pretty defeated. I was feeling like I can't even see a way out of all of these different things that are going on. And, if you texted me or called me and I didn't text or call you back and still haven't, because I haven't dug out of that hole yet, um, like, I just was not good company that day. I thought this is really interesting. It's not a feeling, that I am accustomed to. I'm accustomed to feeling down or depressed or, even struggling with anxiety and depression from time to time, but I don't typically just kind of live in that space. And I just couldn't come up with any positive silver lining at all. I just thought, oh, this is interesting. And like, sometimes even optimists struggle to be
Yeah.
positive. And so I wanted to talk about that because I'm betting that I'm not the only optimist out there that has had a day where we just are really having a rough time being positive. But
Yeah.
when it's a part of who you are, a part of your personality, a part of things that people kind of characterize you as,
Yeah.
then it's really confusing to feel like, wow, I mean, even I can't find my way out of this. How am I going to pick myself up, and who am I? Uh,
Well, I think that's
so
also when people say like they feel like they're in a funk. Like, I think that's a
yeah.
great way to explain it. It's like it's not that there's not anything like physically wrong with me. There's not like, it's just like I feel weird and I don't know how to get out of it or what to do with it, or just cuz you're not in that state of your comfortability.
Yeah. Now, again, different from feeling deep sadness.
Correct.
Certainly have experienced loss and deep sadness, and I'm a big feeler. I feel my emotions bigly when I do feel them. But positivity doesn't mean just pretending that everything is fine, right? It means engaging with reality while you're holding on to hope. And what I was feeling like is that connection to hope was just sort of broken. In that moment, I thought, oh my gosh, now maybe I'll never find it again. Obviously, because I feel everything sort of big.
So you
And
shifted into the pessimist mindset.
100,000%. Got a little bit of empathy for the pessimistic point of view. So I wanted to just talk about what does that mean? What does that feel like? I also was hearing a conversation you and I have had on a podcast before, where we talked about how it's important to feel your feelings. Feelings are signals, they're not your enemies,
Right.
and to just kind of pause and ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? We know that there's a physiological tie in to emotions, and that emotions aren't just a mindset, that they're influenced by stress hormones, they're influenced by your neurotransmitters, by your sleep. They're influenced by your nutrition, by your environment. And sometimes your nervous system literally just does not have any more bandwidth to remain positive. And I think
Yeah.
that's where I was finding myself is like, I'm at max capacity for all of the things I had going on. And then just, it was the needle that broke the haystack. No, the straw that broke the camel's back. Just the one more thing that landed, and my bandwidth was drained. And I'm sure you felt like that from time to time, right?
Absolutely. I think whenever there are emotions involved, right? Like trying to process, trying to get through them, we've talked about how I too have big emotions and sometimes I can get like caught up in them. And I do think it's interesting, the physiological tie in, because we've talked about this before where I kind of have like a checklist that I go through whenever I'm feeling like stuck in an emotion or in a place. And
Mm-hmm.
it's usually like, okay, am I hungry? Yes or no? Am I tired? Yes or no? But
Am I
then,
dehydrated? Yes or no?
right, like there's actual things that like I go through the process of trying to figure out to, one, just make sure like I'm not catastrophizing because I'm a little peckish. Uh, but then
You're
usually
not
it's not
yourself
that.
when you're hungry.
Exactly.
Give
But
this man a Snickers.
But then it gets into this place of, okay, so once you've like evaluated all the rest of the
Mm-hmm.
stuff, and it's just like you trying to process everything that's going on, whether it's, around you, whether it's within the world that you live in, whatever it may be, you do have to process that stuff. Like you
Yeah.
can't just stuff it down. You can't not acknowledge them, because then it actually does have physical ramifications on your body. And I think, as we were prepping for this, trying to find like where's somewhere like we've all maybe seen this before, and the TV show Ted Lasso on Apple
Love
TV.
Ted Lasso. Can I just say, so excited for the next season because I cannot get enough of Ted Lasso.
I was so excited to hear they're coming back. I hope it's
Can't get
just as
enough.
good as the first round went.
It's gonna be,
It's going to be
yeah,
great. We're
it's gonna
putting
be
it out
great.
there.
But Ted Lasso is like famously optimistic, right? I
Correct.
mean, the like if when you look up in the dictionary the definition of optimism, you get like what we talked about earlier, and then you also just get a picture of Ted Lasso. That's just what's there.
But
It's
I
on the
do think like
Wikipedia.
in those later in the seasons, you see him start to like have these moments of uncomfortability and stress and struggle, and
Hmm.
he doesn't share that with anyone. Like he hides it. He
And he's having panic attacks. And
Correct.
you know what I learned through my own experience with panic attacks is panic attacks happen when you have anxiety that you're shoving down and you're not acknowledging and you're not dealing with. And then
Yeah.
eventually the pot just boils over. And it's like your body is telling emotions or signals. They are not your enemies. So if when you're feeling that stress and anxiety, if you don't take the time to listen to it and to address it appropriately, and you just shove it all down in the bottom and try and ignore it, it's eventually going to boil over.
Correct.
And that's what happened even with our beloved Ted Lasso, which, if I think is somebody was, I was talking with somebody about this the other day, and they said something about how people that just are chronically happy people are sometimes the saddest people. And you think about like comedians,
Yeah.
that, how many comedians have, died by suicide. And if you need help, we'll include the suicide help support line, something that's so, so important, something that's super dear to me, and has been impactful in my life. Um, Having lost loved ones, to their struggle with mental health. But, really it is true that, sometimes people who are running away from those feelings can present as, really happy
Yeah.
people if you're not looking closely. And really finding that making other people laugh can, mask that. And I think that's a part of what we saw in Ted Lasso is that, he was bringing the positivity for everybody else, but it was kind of causing this drain on
Right.
him, right? And you brought some things to the conversation around how when you're known as the positive person, especially in a workplace or a family, or if you're a public figure, if you're the coach of a, football team, then keeping that up gets really exhausting. There's actually a term for that. It's called emotional labor. And this emotional regulation work that you have to do, it costs you energy. And so as you're spending all of this energy and you're not like refueling that, that will take its toll over time, which I thought was really interesting. I didn't know that there was like an actual term for that. I just have expressed myself that sometimes it feels exhausting being the one to be positive all the time.
Yeah.
Um, and so, what are you doing to fuel yourself in that? And then, how are you vocalizing that to other people? Because they don't know. They just think that you're just always a glass half full kind of person, right?
Right. But I think that's like where it's first you have to like be able to advocate for yourself and understand like your boundaries and being able to communicate those effectively to others. But then I also think if you're saying that you're this person's friend or that you care about somebody, that's like where that checking in is also
Yeah.
important, because just because someone is like naturally that cheery, positive, optimistic person does not always mean that that is a space that they easily like live in. Like
Yeah.
you found yourself not in that space, and you didn't feel like yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And because I didn't feel like myself, I was really confused. So I wasn't reaching out for help. I was like, I don't even know what's going on with me, but I just need some time to myself. Now, luckily I have an amazing partner who I could rely on, and um I'll share some of what I did to help feel better here in a minute, but um I think what was another bit of neuroscience here, one of the interesting facts that you brought to the table is that the reminder that the brain naturally prioritizes negative stimuli because we are wired for survival. It does not naturally prioritize constant happiness. That is not how we are built. And so this why we chase joy, this concept of chasing joy that I'm constantly thinking about,
Yeah.
it's not like it just comes naturally. So if you see somebody that's just happy all the time, maybe they're more positively oriented, but they probably are doing some work to stay happy. And we talk about things like, our gratitude moments, doing a gratitude journal, um, self care, affirmations, taking time for yourself, all of those kinds of things to help you stay in this positive place because we are literally wired to identify threats and respond to them.
Right.
And if you
Just accordingly.
yeah, but we don't live in a world where like the life that we lead, we don't necessarily have to be in that state all of the time, but we're getting tripped in that state constantly, that amygdala hijack.
Yeah.
And so if you don't know how to kind of manage that and keep yourself from getting into that amygdala hijack space, then your cortisol reserves may just be like really high and you've got these chemicals running through your body that are impairing that function of your
Right.
prefrontal cortex, which is where your body regulates all of your emotions and helps you maintain that balanced perspective. That's why we ask, like, okay, I don't feel like myself. Am I hungry? Am I thirsty? Am I tired? Like, do I have a physical need that I need to take care of that's causing my body to feel like it's in a threat state?
Yeah.
And if it's not a physical need, then, what do I need to do? What to manage those emotions? We also know that, chronic stress, because we are not doing the things we need to do to take care of ourselves, cause us to have unnaturally elevated cortisol levels. Things like walking regularly, getting that good aerobic exercise in, help to manage cortisol. Some people are just naturally oriented towards higher cortisol levels, and so then you just have to put in a little bit more work to
Right.
sort of de-stress. Absolutely, if you are stuffing things down and you are not dealing with the emotions, taking the time to get quiet and listen to what it is that your body is telling you, if you've got some past trauma that you haven't dealt with, those kinds of things that can absolutely play into the hand here. And the thing about not checking in with yourself and paying attention to those things is that it will just be the little thing that comes in and sort of knocks you out, which is where I found myself. Like, all of these things that, normally I can be pretty positive about. And, it just was like the thing that the the little thing that came in, and it was like, okay, well, I can't see a positive for anything anymore.
Right. And I think that's what's like really important is understanding that sometimes this stuff happens and it's not planned. Like life happens. And as much
Hmm.
as we would love to be able to control it and move through it as quickly as we can and all of those things, it you have to process it, and some things will take longer than others, and we've talked about it before, having like that safe space if you need to talk to someone, a close friend, to help you process those things. Is it writing it down so that you can express those feelings in a safe space, because at least you're doing something with it, like you're not just sitting in it. And you know steeped tea is great. Steeped emotions usually like
Not
bubble
so
up
good.
into other things.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and we've talked about it, like you've talked about how you have panic attacks, I get ulcers, like it can manifest in very many different ways, but it's understanding like what are the things that are starting to take you down those paths, so that way you can start to work on pulling it back, and not back in a way of like trying to stop it, but like how can you
How
start
do
to
you manage
process
it?
them, right?
Yeah. How do you manage it? And we'll talk more specifically about that in just a minute. But before we get there, I want to talk about toxic positivity versus authentic positivity,
I feel like that's
because,
such a buzzword these days, toxic
yeah,
positivity.
it's like super important. So, talk to us about toxic positivity, Chris.
So to me, it's like the way that I see people kind of express this is this is the person who like they are dismissing real emotions that are actually taking place. They are maybe even ignoring some of the actual negative things that are happening in front of them. So like the facts, the actual things that are happening, we're just going to ignore those because we're going to be okay. Everything's going to work out. It's going to be great. Or just telling people just be grateful. Like I think that's another one people are like big on as well. Like
Yeah.
good vibes only. Like it's not that easy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I think how I might state that is, if you are ignoring what's going on and you're not really listening to how you're feeling and you're stuffing your emotions and then putting on the pretense of positivity, that's toxic positivity. It's just fake. It's not real. And hey, I am all about fake it until you make it, because sometimes that is what you have to do. But if you are faking it until you make it, where positivity comes into play, you have to at least be honest with yourself that that is what you're doing. So I know, like, I've shared that affirmations are a really helpful way for me to find positivity, hold on to hope when I'm feeling like things are just, I can't find that. And sometimes I can't say honestly and authentically, I'm really grateful for this. I'm really happy for this. I'm like, I've shared, as I was going for a walk, and I was like, the affirmation is like, I am so grateful that I get to be on this walk. And I'm like, well, I am actually not. I like, this sucks today, but I'm really grateful that I have legs that work, that are going to move me forward. Like, that's the thing that I can find to be authentically grateful for. And so I think it's really important to be honest with yourself about how you're feeling, so that if you are going to fake it until you make it, because you don't always have to show the whole world how you
Right.
feel. And sometimes you have to lead yourself with action, and then the emotions will follow. But you can't be ignoring your emotions, because then they're going to come back and get the best of
Right.
you.
Well, that's where they have authentic positivity. It
Yeah.
is when you're actually acknowledging the real like perspectives, the real things that are happening. So like you saying like I'm not happy to be out here in this 100-degree heat walking because I this is miserable. So I can't say that. Well, then what can I say? What is
Hmm.
something that I can move into that space of gratitude for? And that's authentic positivity.
Yeah. And sometimes when you're in that place where you just really can't come up with it on your own because you are having a rough day, that's when you turn to that optimistic friend that's in your Rolodex and you say, hey, Chris, I need a bit of positivity today. So can you give me the words, and I'm going to repeat them until they start to feel true for me because today I need somebody to lean on. And I think that's really important, that, sometimes we do need to carry each other through this. Now, if you're the person that's always carrying everybody, then, you need to check yourself, because sometimes you need that person to lead on. But like, even therapists go to therapy, guys. They don't just therapize themselves. What tools exist
Yeah.
when positivity feels hard? And I feel like this is a really good place to talk about that, because I have an example that I want to share. So, my dad has been in the hospital quite a bit, going through cancer treatment for leukemia. And there is this amazing chemo education nurse there. His name is Justin, and he has just been like just a lifesaver for us, and just this amazing human I'm incredibly grateful for. And Justin, came in and had a conversation with us, and he said, look, this is really hard, being here, getting faced with this kind of diagnosis, having, you're just at the doctor's office, and then later that day you're in the hospital and your whole life has changed. Like, that's really hard, and it sucks. And like, you can't just be positive all the time
Yeah.
when that stuff is happening. And so what he said is, this was his advice: give yourself a day. Give yourself one day a week where you can just say, today sucks. I feel terrible. I'm having all of these like symptoms from chemo treatment. I feel down. I don't get to do the things that I was planning on doing. All of those things. Just give yourself the day and allow yourself to say, this sucks.
Yeah.
Because he said, if you don't give yourself that time, then like, you're not really being true to how the reality of the situation that you're in.
Yeah.
But then he said, but the next day, when you wake up, you have to say, okay, this sucks, but that's not the headspace I'm going to stay in today. Today, I am going to find the silver lining. I am going to push myself to be positive. I'm going to call the people that are going to help me be positive. He said, it's important to take the day, the moment, the whatever, to allow yourself to acknowledge how tough it is. But then it's also equally as important to push yourself to get out of that headspace and not
Yeah.
allow yourself to stay in that headspace all of the time, because this is still the life that you're living. And, you know, we only get one go at it. So
Yeah.
the goal is to enjoy it as much as we can. So find the joy all around you. I mean, we've talked about that before as well. So while I think that was just really good advice for someone that, sees a lot of people in really tough situations in the cancer center, I think it's also really good advice just for life in general. When things are not going well, when, the world around you seems to be in unrest, give yourself the day to say, this really sucks. This is hard. I just really don't know how I'm going to move forward. I can't find the silver lining in this today. And then the next day, you wake up and you tell yourself, okay, I had my day yesterday. I can have it again next week. But I'm going to shelve all of those feelings for now, and I'm going to push myself to find the positive. And so I think about Justin and I think about his advice and even apply that to my own life as things get hard, because it's, I think, really helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I think that kind of advice goes so far. And, for people who are on a journey, like a cancer diagnosis, that's like a field that I don't necessarily work directly in oncology, but I
Yeah.
support that type of work. And that's a lot of the conversations are around the mindset of the patient is so important. And
Yeah.
being able to be real about what you're feeling, what you're experiencing, having that authentic perspective and allowing yourself to feel it and go through it, but then also make sure that you're seeing the other side of it well. Find that balance because yes, it sucks right now, but whenever you have those opportunities, it's important to not let those joys go by without grabbing them because they are there. They do exist. Just sometimes can be harder to see whenever the path is a little darker maybe.
Yeah, and that's okay. That's okay. That
Yeah.
sometimes, the light at the end of the tunnel is not really visible.
Yeah. And not the same experience that your dad is going through, but I just had this conversation with
Yeah.
someone about my experience moving here to New York. And when I moved here, I had no friends. Like I left my family where well, you don't live here.
No, but I was still your friend.
Right, but I didn't have like any physical family friends that were present in New York City with me.
Okay,
So
I'll accept that.
where I lived in Texas, my parents, my siblings, my grandparents, set of my aunt and uncles, we all lived like within a
Yeah.
5 mile radius of each other. And so that on top of my friends, like there was always stuff happening. And I was
Yeah.
always like, had things going on. And then I move here and I don't have that anymore. I have to start creating friends. And then also like life there continued to happen, deaths, ailments,
Yeah.
all of that stuff continued. And I felt alone. And so I do remember like part of that was hard. Like it's hard going through stuff so far away from your family, but it's also like I look back on that and it's like, yeah, that was not the brightest spot in my life. But I'm so happy that I stuck with it, that I processed through all the things, a lot of therapy. And we got
Yeah.
here, like we got to this place and I look back on it and I can acknowledge like not my most favorite, year of my life, but definitely a lot of learning that went on
A lot
and
of
things,
growth that
yes,
year.
growth,
Yeah.
exactly.
Not always comfortable. In
Correct.
fact, typically not. But yeah, I think so. The other day, just before you got here, when I was feeling really low and really down, I had expressed that to my husband. And one of the things, I like to do is go take my camera out and go take pictures of nature. And I love watching the sunset. And so I said, can you just drive me out to go see the sunset? Can we just go chase the sunset? And we did. And we took my camera and we went, and we didn't actually find a good spot to take a photo until the sun had already set, because it was, we didn't start until the sun was already on its way down.
Yeah.
Um, and we hadn't taken the time to go look and see like where's the best spot to take a picture and not get all the things in the background. But while we were driving along on the highway, like we were just watching it. We were experiencing it and watching the sunset, and it was beautiful. And then we finally did find a spot, and I got to take some photos, and it was beautiful. The sky was still peach and purple, and we were on our way back home, and I just said, thank you for taking me out. That feeling that I was having in my chest has calmed down. I feel more centered. So for me, getting out to watch the sky fire, as I like to call it, watch the sky get painted in all of the pretty colors, and just the magic of that, which is here most days, is something that helps me take myself out of that moment and remind me that, like, regardless of what happens here in this world, like, all of our problems are pretty much
Yeah.
like manufactured. There's some health stuff, whatever, but like a lot of the problems that we live in day to day, like it's all manufactured. I was even like saying, like all these like government and all of this kind of stuff, like it's all stuff we as humans made up. Like we weren't born, like we didn't start to exist as the human race in a world that already had that created.
Right.
We
Fully
made it.
formed. Right.
We made it all. And I'm not saying it's not important or doesn't help us or any of those things, but like these are all problems we've sort of created. And when you start to connect to like, regardless of what happens here, the sun is still going to come up and it's still going to go down. The sunset is still going to paint across the sky. Like, I am a part of something that is so much bigger that it kind of gives you perspective. We've talked about that in the past, getting that perspective for your problems or your
Yeah.
feelings. It's also why I really like to like look at the moon and the stars and look at the constellation. While you were here, we got to pull out my telescope and we went and looked at the moon. I think you said it was the first time you had seen the moon
Through a
through a
telescope.
telescope.
And let me
And
tell
I
you, we could see some great detail with that there telescope.
Yeah, I mean, I get great detail with my camera too, but like you could see some really good detail with that telescope. And
Yeah.
um, I was shocked because growing up in Kansas, that's just like a thing that you did. You went to like the observatory and you looked through the telescope at the moon and,
Well, maybe we did that as a kid, but it wasn't a memory that apparently stuck.
I don't know, like that's a thing we did. So I enjoyed that. That was always something that I really enjoyed. So I love pulling out the telescope and getting to see the moon. And I appreciate that my husband and life partner helps figure out how to get all those planets in the sites because we were having a time trying to figure that out on our own.
Right. We
He said,
sure
"Wait,
did.
how do you do this normally?" And I say, "Well, I walk out and it's all set up for me. Like that's how it normally happens."
I have an ace. um,
Seems to be a running theme. But
yeah.
yeah, I love to go look at those things because it helps to center me and remind me that like these problems that feel really big, and they feel really big sometimes in the grand scheme of the universe in general, like it helps put them into perspective.
Right. Well, and you are occupying your mind with something else. So like we
Yeah.
talk about that left brain, right brain, the amygdala hijack, like you start to make your brain start doing something else and busying it with
Yeah.
with things that bring you joy. And I think that's one of the like tools to how to move into that positivity space when
Yeah.
maybe you feel a little bit lost or, untethered and just going about in the field of emotions. I think another good way is like really naming and labeling what you are feeling and going through. That was advice that
Yeah.
you gave me recently that we talked about. Really, because once we identify things, it's easier for us to process and our brain starts taking us out of that like fight or flight and we can start processing
What are we
things.
going to do about it? Now that I have
Right.
a name for it, what can I do about it?
Exactly.
Taking sensory breaks. I love that. Like whether you just go for a walk. How many times have I done that where I'm just like, I can't handle this anymore. I need to go for a walk. Go for a walk and then I come back and I'm like, okay, now I feel like I can. It's also a great way to like get out of a creative rut. You are a big fan of music and have taught me that sometimes just turning on some music and taking a break from, whatever is going on inside your head to get that auditory sensory processing going with the music is a great way to break things up. It's a great tool. And it really does bring me a ton of joy too. So I love that you bring that to life.
Right, and I think you have to find the thing that works for you because some people like that wouldn't. That would not be the thing that,
Mhm.
puts you into that better space, then don't do that.
Yeah, and I think leaning on community. So, I mean, I didn't just go chase the sunset by myself. I said, "Man, I am like, hey babe, I'm feeling really down today. Can you just take me and like let's go do this
Yeah.
together?" And sometimes you and I will call each other. There's social connection or doing something that you enjoy with somebody else or just talking to somebody else. It releases oxytocin, which helps to reduce all of that activity going on in your amygdala that's like trying to target the threats. And
Yeah.
I think that's a really good way of just not for all of us. For me, I know sometimes when I'm have in the past felt really like I was struggling, just going to spend time with friends was a really good way for me to just kind of detox, de-stress. It's like why Friday happy hour is a thing, right?
Yeah. I do think that it was interesting when I was there and we were headed to Kelso Pride
Mm.
when we were in the car, like you were just like processing everything like as it was coming at you. And I've never really seen you in that. Like there have been times
Really?
where, well, there have been times where we have been together and like there are certain, like there are specific things I'm able to say, like, this situation, Heathrow Airport, has caused a certain reaction.
Jen is sitting on the ground crying just outside of TSA at Heathrow Airport, and I don't know what to do about it.
He is broken. What do I do? But I do think like this was the first time that I really wasn't, because we were excited to go to the event and I know you
Mhm.
were excited to go. The outside aspect, like none of us are really like, let's go stand in the heat for a long time. But it was like all stuff to me that was like manageable. So I remember asking you, like, are you okay? What's happening right now?
I was going through my normal, we're going to go do something I've not done before, be somewhere I haven't done before. There's going to be a lot of people, and I am getting a lot of anxiety, which is something that I have always dealt with, but I didn't, like, for a long time, I didn't allow myself to express any of that. And then I started to express it, but I didn't really understand it. So, like, we would say, I want to go to this festival, that we're having. And then the day would come to go to the festival, and I would be like, I can't do it. I just can't do it. I can't go. I don't, there's going to be so many people. I don't know, like, what it's going to be like. I would just start to get really stressed. And it's not logical. I don't know, like, why it happens, but, I just know that it does. And so this is what was happening. I was in the car. I was like, "Oh, my stomach hurts." I don't remember what else I was saying, like all kinds of physical symptoms happening. And
Uh,
here's Ace
I
is
was
just
in
like,
the
this is
back seat
normal.
with Martin. Ace is like, we're going to stop over here and get some ice. And Jen is like, my palms are on fire. Is there steam coming off my head? My stomach hurts. Anyone else? Like, we would stop at the stop sign and the car was like,
Shaking like crazy because my leg is just going like this. Yeah, I was having a lot of anxiety because I didn't really know what to expect. We were going to interact with a lot of amazing people, but like how like how was I going to show up, and
right.
was I just going to be super awkward, and was I going to do a good job, and how is everything going to get all set up? Usually I try and manage that kind of stuff ahead of time by like walking through it in my mind so I feel like I know what to expect. Ace has said before, I love the idea of surprises, but I really hate being surprised
I could see that.
because I just don't like to be caught off guard. I like to know what to expect. It takes me a little bit longer to process things. I'm not really super good at processing them quickly in the moment. Like I can pivot pretty easily, but it's usually because I've thought ahead of time about
Right.
it. And I just didn't I felt like I didn't have all of that. So
I
I
do
was
th-
feeling pretty stressed.
Right. And so I think like the kind of juxtaposition that this example provides is like it was something that we knew we were doing, we were excited to go to, but yet there were
Yeah.
still things of it like the I don't know, the question marks. And so you still had a similar reaction to the one that you did when you weren't sure of what the funk was and all of
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah.
like it can happen, like whether you're looking forward to something or you're dreading something, like whether you're optimistic, pessimistic, realistic, like this stuff happens and it comes
Yes.
at you like a freight train and you have to deal with it in the moment.
Yes. So glad we got to unfold all of that. That's crazy for all of you to see, but most of you probably know that about me already. And I'm really Pride Kelso went amazing. I
I did.
am so glad we got to meet so many of you guys at the event.
Yeah.
It was I've said a few times to people as they were asking me how the event went, like there were so many people there, and yet every single interaction that I had, it just felt like We were surrounded by so many kind,
Yeah.
positive, genuinely nice humans. And it was like incredibly uplifting. So,
It
like
was.
looking back, it's like, why was I even stressed about like, how are they gonna receive us? Are they gonna like us? Are we gonna be, I don't even know. Why was I even there? Because they were literally just 1,500 of the nicest people I've ever been around. It was amazing, or however many people were there. Like, I don't
Right. But it just showed that when the brain starts operating in this like threat analysis space, it's harder to like get that back in control. In the car, like I wasn't trying, and even now, like I'm not trying to shame you or make you feel bad or any of those things.
I know that.
It's like trying to understand, like, okay, we do have like we don't
Yeah.
need to be so concerned. We are personable people. I mean, at least I think we are. Um, so yeah, I think it's one of those things that once we again understand it, we can start to find balance. And like in all things we talk about, it seems like having a
Yeah.
balance is really
Finding
important.
balance. We're big on balance here, guys. Kind of hilarious when you think about what I've done for a living, my career is to interact with people. So, um, uh, but yeah, I really appreciate you taking this journey with me, having this conversation about how sometimes even optimists struggle to be optimistic, and that's okay.
Yep.
So if you are an optimist, if that is a part of your personal brand and your personality, and you have days where you just feel like, I am not feeling it today, I am struggling, I do not feel happy or positive or like I can see the silver lining in anything, I just want to say to you, it's okay. That's normal, even for an optimist. And reach out to your network. Tell people, like, hey, I need you to hold me up today, even though that's normally my MO, because today I am struggling.
Yeah.
They're not going to judge you. You're just going to seem all the more human to them, but take care of yourself and give yourself a day to just feel crummy. Like, I know some people have some people talk about like, what's that movie that you watch when you just need a good cry? And other people are like, I don't understand that. I think you've said it. I don't understand that. Like,
I
why would you
sure
do that?
have. I had a cousin that told me that. She's like, I just need a good cry today. I'm gonna go watch this movie. I'm like, I'm sorry. You want to cry?
Now, look, I'm not a fan of crying because it makes me like physically a hot mess. I get a headache. My eyes swell up like 3 times the size of what they are. I mean, it's like a hangover without the drinking part. It's horrible. It takes me days to recover. But, like this whole concept of like, let's have a pity party, like a real one, just for one day. And then the next
Correct.
day we're going to get up and we're going to do better.
Continue on.
But give yourself that's a part of self-care. Give yourself the space to have your feelings, to sit in your feelings and acknowledge them. Just don't get stuck in them. So we would love to hear from you. What do you do in order to pull yourself out of a funk?
Yeah.
How do you do that? What works for you?
And do you consider yourself a natural optimist, a natural pessimist, someone who is a realist? Let us know.
Yeah.
We'd love to hear from you. You can reach out to us via email at chrisjeninthemorning@gmail.com. You can also leave us a voicemail or a text message at 940-278-8129.
Drop a comment wherever you're listening to this and let us know what you think. Hit subscribe if you haven't yet. That really does help us make sure that our content gets to you. And don't forget to follow us on all of the social media platforms. We're out there on, like, I don't know, not quite everything, but almost, like your Facebook, your Instagram, TikTok. Although we don't
Yes,
post there
yours
very often. We're on
specifically.
Pinterest. We're on Reddit. I am specifically. So definitely check us out there. And then until next time, be kind to one another and make it a great week.
Bye, everyone.